The world of Batman conjures up concepts of the dark nature of man. It reveals a sense of foreboding found at the edges of our imagination, and yet it also tells a tale of hope and resurrection of the soul. According to popular history, the comic book stories of this dual-natured individual were created by artist Bob Kane and writer Bill Finger, who, in around 1939, grasped the rising current of collective hope on the brink of a world war and fostered a new Superman in the guise of Batman. The story goes that the millionaire Bruce Wayne, so tormented by the violent death of his parents, decides that he needs to take revenge upon the criminals of Gotham City and searches his mind for an answer. Suddenly, Wayne's thoughts were interrupted by a huge bat, which flickered through an open window near Wayne's armchair, as if in response to some silent, unconscious summons. As it whirled and fluttered around his head, its silken wings etched sharply against the full moon, which silently asserted its one dominion over the murky night sky outside. Bruce Wayne realised that his grim musings had found their fulfilment. "A bat!" cried Wayne. "That's it. It's an omen. I shall become a bat." Wayne, following years of preparation, becoming a master scientist and training his mind and body, is now able to connect to his deeper, unconscious self and dark nature. He rises to the challenge from the depths of his unconscious cave and discovers a new creature of the night. In his conscious state, he struggles to deal with his own emotions, and so takes on the mantle of his deeper state. He now feels that he must overcome his own fears and become the terror itself. Held within the simple, comic book tales created by two ordinary men before the war, is a story with such depth that it has held the world spellbound ever since, for it talks to us all. It is my opinion that the secret of the success of Batman is to be found within each and every one of us. It is archetypal, an inner representation of our own foreboding, not of the world outside ourselves, but the deeper, darker elements of our own mind. Because this inner world is the same the world over, across cultures and across state boundaries, we shall discover that it is the element of the bat that shall be found to be one of the most powerful archetypal symbols of the dark nature of mankind. We shall also discover that this truth is not new, but instead something as ancient as man and his own consciousness.
In life, we face temptation, happiness. When you're happy, be aware. When you're happy, be aware. Beware. Ṣọ́ra, ṣọ́ra fáyé, ṣọ́ra o, ilé ayé le.
Bob Kane was an ordinary guy who grew up in the Bronx in New York. He didn't have a privileged upbringing and certainly had to fight for everything that he could get. In many ways, this explains the later, almost defensive stance he took with regard to his creation of Batman, only later on in life mellowing slightly. His own words reveal that he was well aware of his mortality. Revealing his own inner thoughts as most writers do, he once said, "I believe that most people envy the immortality of a pop cult figure like Batman, who in his fictional world remains as young, handsome and virile as he did when I created him. We all secretly fantasise that some of our superheroes' fountain of youth will rub off on us.
Believers think and make no thoughts. The dark rings of the sun casting shadows on a cross inside the crowd.
Cain was also aware of the subtle psychological world in which his consciousness would strive. He grew in a world that saw the rise and death of Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung, two of the founding fathers of modern psychology, who revealed the mystical elements of the deeper, unconscious self. These were concepts widely talked about as the young Cain absorbed the world around him. It was an age of discovery, not just of new science, but of the mind of man. It was also an age of terror, as the occult Nazi party in Germany was set to terrorise the world. But Cain had an optimism grown out of his struggles as a youth, and he even read Goethe, the German philosopher, explaining that Goethe's philosophy suited his own. Whatever you can do, or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power and magic in it. Begin it now. These words of Goethe also reveal one of the reasons that Batman has been so powerfully successful. It reveals that even in the dark side of the human mind, one can find optimism and strength. This is the defining moment in any human, that he can find that will to go on and seek new heights from the very depths of his own inner fear. Batman is the archetypal hero because he is the physical manifestation of all our struggles and hopes. Luckily for Bob Kane, he intuitively knew what to do. He did not have to spend years of his life at the foot of the guru or entrenched in the world of philosophy and religion, as many of us have to in order to discover our path. Very early on in life, Cain set out his goals, and with determined steely resolve, he let nothing and no one stand in his way. By the time the Second World War had come around in Europe, and America was gearing itself up to join, Bob Kane had absorbed a number of important and influential elements that led to the creation of Batman.
Jesus carried his own cross. Genius
One of these was the dual-natured and dual identity of the swashbuckling Zorro. During the daylight, Zorro was known as Don Diego Vega, a wealthy Mexican who at night turned into the masked crusader. The very term itself, Zorro, is Spanish for fox, yet another nocturnal beast like the bat. Within the language of our fables, whether ancient or modern, there is often a clue to the almost subconscious mind of man manifesting within. Our words are created to have meaning, and very often later generations change and adapt these words, giving them new meanings. And yet, beneath the layers of these generations and additions, we can still find the subtle truths, laid down as foundation stones for future times to discover. In this instance, it is pretty obvious that the man, Diego Vega, is the conscious self, fully aware of his surroundings and yet trapped, as we all are in the wheel of our own creating. We all have to work hard to survive and overcome the issues of the world we are trapped in. However, Vega is one of the brightest stars in the sky. It is the awakened state, as opposed to the dreamy, dark state of the night. It is the alter ego of the wily, nocturnal fox, or Zorro, the dual nature of man revealed in the language of the past. This, then, is a perfect starting point for the later pinnacle of dual-natured heroic characters, Batman. But Kane's mind was also racing with radio shows and stories such as The Inner Sanctum, The Witcher's Tales, and of course, The Shadow. One phrase from The Shadow stayed with young Kane so much so that he had to include it within his own biography. Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The Shadow knows. The shadow, of course, is something that we cannot escape from. In 1930, another influence played heavily upon Kane. A film by the name of The Bat Whispers was released, following an earlier attempt entitled just The Bat. It was based on a play also called The Bat by Avery Hopwood and Mary Hopkins Reinhardt, and was an unusual and deeply psychological story to tell. A terror has fallen across the city a masked criminal who goes by the name of the Bat. This criminal of the night raids the homes of millionaires and eludes the police. A rich socialite settles into a country mansion where the Bat just happens to have stored his hoard, and so our criminal goes on a killing spree to get at his loot from a secret room inside the house. However, the dark truth of this criminal's identity is revealed to be one of the house guests. The dark nature, it seems, resides amongst us. The Batman in his guise is remarkably like the Batman created by Kane. He wears a black bat mask, has bat wings, and even reveals his symbol of the bat as a calling card, as a silhouette in a glow of light upon the wall. The only difference is that Kane needed a hero and not a criminal. However, this also reveals yet deeper and more thought-provoking links, for if Kane was influenced by the Bat Whispers, then he must also have known of the influences upon that film. In 1915, Louis Foulade released a silent film entitled Les Vampires, which was widely popular, eminently stylised, and featured skulking masked villains. The depth of this influence, we shall soon see, reveals the ancient links to the unconscious torment within the darkened mind of man. Another interesting influence espoused by Kane himself, and relevant today because of the infamous Da Vinci Code, is the Birdman drawn by the great artist, Leonardo da Vinci himself. In the words of Kane, the second influence was a Leonardo da Vinci book I had seen. The book had a lot of inventions, including a flying machine. It was a man on a sled-like contraption with huge bat wings. Da Vinci had a quote that went something like this: "Your bird will have no model but that of a bat." There it was, from a book 500 years old. This Da Vinci flying machine is known as the Ornithopter, and does indeed look remarkably like a flying bat machine for man. There is even speculation that Da Vinci actually got the thing to work. In addition, many of the other machines, such as the helicopter, would later be used by Batman in his exploits. However, it seems that the Batman concept, the dark nature and the bat wings, had already previously been done in book, play and film, regardless of the images from a Da Vinci drawing that Kane claims to have seen. The truth of the matter is that this whole concept was not just inevitable, but that it had in fact appeared for generations, taking twists and turns in the psyche of humanity. One more influence, which opens up the world of the mind, played upon Kane: Dracula.
To be really dead, that must be glorious. I am Dracula.
than a streak of lightning, more powerful than the pounding surf, mightier than a roaring hurricane. This amazing stranger from the planet Krypton, the Man of Steel, Superman. Possessing remarkable physical strength, Superman fights a never-ending battle for truth and justice. Disguised as a mild-mannered newspaper reporter.
In 1938, the runaway success of Action Comics' Superman character prompted the national publications, later DC Comics, to search for yet more superheroes. Together, Bob Kane and Bill Finger created Batman, and the ensuing arguments of who created exactly what have been ongoing ever since. The very first Batman story finally arrived in May 1939 in Detectives Comics number 27, entitled The Case of the Chemical Syndicate. Many today would not recognise this more gritty element to Batman, who had no problem with killing or even maiming criminals, and even had a gun. Nevertheless, Batman was an immediate success, and by 1940, Batman had his own comic. The huge success of Superman and Batman prompted a new genre, and soon they were appearing together in the world's finest comics by the fall of 1940. At this time, two additional writers were brought in, Jerry Robinson and Dick Sprang. Over the coming months and years, new elements were added into the tale of Batman, with stronger jawlines and extended ears on the costume. The characteristic utility belt was added in July 1939, followed quickly by a Batarang, a vehicle, and of course the infamous origins of the Batman's dark-natured past by September of the same year. As early as November 1939, the rapidly softening edge of Batman resulted in the sidekick boy wonder Robin, who also had a dual identity as Dick Grayson. Robin was a warm-hearted but tough teenager and ward of Bruce Wayne. He is described as the daredevil young aide and young laughing Robin Hood of the day. He is also impatient, foolhardy, reckless, and the living hurricane. All of this in stark contrast to the controlled and logical mind of Batman, made for a perfect union and interesting tale. Sales of the comics nearly doubled overnight, and other newly created superheroes quickly followed suit. From the very start, two of the most infamous adversaries of the dynamic duo were introduced, the Joker and Catwoman, and by 1942 almost all of the now easily recognisable elements of Batman had been formed. By the end of the Second World War, however, the darker side of Batman, in his bleak and menacing world, were being stripped out in favour of a more optimistic approach, reflecting the cultural movements and feelings in the world at large. By the 1950s, interest in superheroes was waning, but Batman remained, and in 1952 he joins forces with Superman in the tale The Mightiest Team in the World, where these dual personalities discover each other's true identities. This sparked a renewed interest, and pretty soon Batman and Superman were regularly featured together, right up until 1986. In this new post-war world of innovation, there was a distinct excitement among the general Western population for all things modern and specifically scientific. This created a desire to imagine a better future, and so Batman tales became positively more science fiction based. Space aliens and bizarre scientific creations are set against the superheroes. However, by 1964, Batman sales were plummeting, and DC Comics, according to Bob Kane, were set to kill him off altogether. But then a new editor was brought in, Julius Schwartz, and radically changed Batman. In May 1964, the new look Batman was revealed, with a return to detective-style tales and the introduction of the famous Batmobile. Not to mention the new design costume, with the introduction of the yellow ellipse behind the Bat insignia. Almost all the 1950s science fiction based characters were sent into oblivion, and even the much loved butler Alfred was killed off and replaced with Aunt Harriet.
By virtue of the authority vested in me, I do hereby call to order the 103rd meeting of the Batman Mystery Club.
In 1966, Adam West debuted as Batman in the hit TV series, which also saw Alfred back from the dead, and introduced the feminine principle of Batgirl into a world ever more conscious of the general sexual inequalities. The TV show inevitably influenced the comics themselves, but by as early as 1968, after only 2 years, the show was cancelled and the comics once again began to decline. It was decided in 1969, mainly by writers Dennis O'Neil and Neil Adams, that the camp nature of the TV show and the copycat comic editions had caused the downslide, and so they returned Batman back to his original state as the grim avenger of the night. By 1970, a stream of writers collaborated on recreating Bob Kane's and Bill Finger's original ideas, and the result was a return to the more darker elements of the Batman theme so loved by fans across the world. However, popularity still decreased regardless, hitting an all-time low by 1985. Then, in 1986, Frank Miller introduced a limited edition series entitled Batman: The Dark Knight Returns. This is the story of the now 50-year-old Bruce Wayne coming out of retirement to fight the modern-day criminals. It was a huge success and led to Dennis O'Neil and others recreating the younger Batman in a similar vein, even retelling his origins and the death of his parents. Because of the darker edge now introduced into the Batman tales, a new, older generation became interested, and with the addition of movies, a whole new revitalised cult following emerged. Today, Batman has yet again been recreated with even grittier, more realistic and psychologically dark tales, and a new success story is unravelling. What tomorrow may bring for our Dark Knight we cannot say, but judging from history, it will certainly follow the underlying psychology of the general population at large. And this has been true of not just Batman, but also the precursors of Batman, the vampire. The vampire has been part of the human subconscious for a very long time. In modern popular folklore, the vampire is evil, with intent upon taking our very soul and sapping our lifeblood in order to survive. These concepts are deeply rooted in the fear of the unconscious mind, the dark recesses of our very selves. Truths of the reality of the vampire manifestation can be found in the words themselves. The word van simply means before, or in front of, or even in preference to. The word pyre means simply fire, and so a vampire is he who stands before, or in preference to fire. This can sound very strange and almost have no meaning until we dig a little deeper. The vampires are, of course, totally related to bats, and so we ought to begin our dig with these. Looking at the language again, we discover that the bat derives from the word backa, as in the Swedish nattbacka, or night bat. Backa is in fact related to much more ancient concepts and means the land of light or fire. The Sacred Heart of Islam, Mecca, was once known as Bacca because it holds the starry stones that fell from the sky, the light of the night sky falling to the ground, and which are now kept in a perfectly black state like the night itself. Here we are finding that the bat was in fact not something of evil, but a carrier or transition device between the world of man and the world of the deities. It traversed the twilight, it overcame the fear we humans had of the night, and therefore had preference to the light or fire. This fire spoken of by our ancestors was a unique experience, enabled from within the dark recesses of the mind, known as the illumination, the fire within. Man would struggle with his fear, overcome it, and delve within the unconscious self to access the divine. This was a role given to shaman, who were said to take flight, and gave rise to the Greek ferryman of the river Styx, known as the charon, meaning to fly. Later, this charon became a coin used to pay for the dead to access the other world, or Hades. We have a whole new meaning now to the phrase, like a bat out of hell. Because of the obvious pagan elements to these concepts, and because it spoke of a method of meeting the divine without the need for the church, the Catholic world erupted with propaganda and vengeance against all things bat-like. Pretty soon, the vampire was a bloodthirsty tyrant, pulling upon the ancient blot or blood rituals as evidence. This merging of the blood rites and the bat into a modern-day horror story stands now in stark contrast to the twist given by Bob Kane when he made Batman a hero once again. Even the very bloodlines of those in old Europe were tainted and given false histories. The dragon or serpent worshipping past that predated Christianity across Europe was sullied by naming Dracula, the arch-dragon himself, as the head of the vampire order. Evidence of this dragon-linked past comes through in many ways. For instance, the Magyar people have a name for the highest initiation available to the shaman, Tetatu, which translates as one who talks with dragons. In fact, these were remnants of a pre-Christian era that worshipped the serpent and utilised various methods of finding the fire within, including blood rituals and ecstatic states. This place of peace within one's own mind was known to the Hindus as the void, a metaphysical concept not easily understood in the classical Christian sense. In time, the word creeped into the Western language as Vidya, and eventually Wicca. This of course gave rise to the term we now have for those shamans of the past, witches. These were the ones who could access the other world on our behalf, and of course images of bats and serpents abound. They were also known as Charon due to their ability to fly. The winged serpent or dragon is a universally accepted archetype, as is the bat. There are physical reasons and internal psychological reasons, but important to our research here is the fact that they were creatures of both the physical night and the mental night. And of course, as the Dark Knight, Batman was the ultimate union between the dragon, bat and man himself. He battles for the light whilst sinking into the deep dark night.
Up and down, back and forward, rattle the cage to wake my mother from black and white dreams and colorful spells into a different set of rooms where we don't belong. A serpent arise from out of the depths, heading for the sun, looking into my eyes. Illuminate me so I may see the light. Illuminate me so I cease to long for anything. Illuminate me so I can tell what's right. Illuminate me so I come to know myself.
Bob Kane may very well have been subconsciously fulfilling his own inner wishes and desires on paper when he created Batman. He may have been placing his alter ego within the folds of the Caped Crusader. As he himself said, "I surmise that my fantasies are shared by most people, and therein lies the key to Batman's longevity and success."
Lead out through a gate onto a winding path in between two towers. Illuminate me so I may see the light.
But this is the very essence of the process, a work on the self, a wish to be a better person and to overcome one's own fears. Kane's troubled boyhood fights and losses emerged as the victorious superhero, but this only turned the tables of a negative image for the Bat into something much more profound. The deeper insight comes when we understand that the Dark Knight emerged from a universal and archetypal link within ourselves.
Dose of confusion to bridge the gap, building a ship within a bottle filled with black and white fears and colorful hopes.
Bob Kane and Bill Finger whilst absorbing the cultural influences surrounding them in the early 20th century, revised and recreated the shaman who does battle for humanity. They admitted that they intuitively pulled archetypes from within their own minds and merged them into the greatest of superheroes. They turned the world of propaganda on its head and gave back to the bat its special place in our hearts and minds. What we shall never know is whether Cain and Finger were truly conscious of what they had really done. Batman, in one form or another, shall go on as long as man exists, because he is the drive, the fear, the tormentor, pressing us forward and goading us towards the light of a new dawn. Wayne's thoughts were interrupted by a huge bat, which flickered through an open window near Wayne's armchair, as if in response to some silent, unconscious summons.
You creatures of the light, how can you say with absolute certainty what does or does not dwell within the limitless ocean of the night? Are the dark enshrouded legions of evil not but figments of the imagination, because you and your puny conceit say they cannot exist? Whence came the story, told in frightened whispers down through the ages, of witch and warlock, werewolf and vampire, and all the spawn of hell, born on the sable wings of night to the unholy communion of the witch's Sabbath?
To die, to be really dead, that must be glorious.
By virtue of the authority vested in me, I do hereby call to order the 103rd meeting of the Batman Mystery Club. And now it is my privilege to introduce our friend Bruce Wayne, otherwise known as the Batman.
Thank you, Robin. Good evening, everybody. You've just heard Robin open the 103rd meeting of our Mystery Club. As you know, we gather together at this time each night to explore the supernatural and to tear aside the veil of darkness, to prove that ghosts and apparitions are only figments of man's imagination, to show that wherever there is mystery, it's been created by human hands. And so, with that thought in mind, I bid you all welcome to the Mystery Club. Since we have important matters to consider tonight, I move that we dispense with the reading of the minutes of the last meeting.
I second the motion, Batman.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Are there any questions from the floor? Yes, Richard.
I'm a little puzzled about something, Batman.
All right, let's see whether we can unpuzzle you. What is it, Richard?
Well, in our last mystery, you know, the one we finished Friday night, you told how the little man with the limp, I think his name was Mr. Willis.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he swore that he saw the ghost of his brother when he visited that medium, Madame Safara. Well, he wasn't crazy, was he?
Oh, Mr. Willis was quite sane. As a matter of fact, he was convinced he had seen his brother's ghost.
Well, did he?
Of course not. Madame Zafara, like most fakers, was very clever. Before setting up the seance for Mr. Willis, she managed somehow to secure a photograph of his dead brother. She had a plaster cast made, and using soft green lights, it almost looked like the real thing.
Gee whiz. Yeah, but what about the ectoplasm Mr. Willis saw? Wasn't that real?
Now, ectoplasm doesn't exist, Richard. It's a word used by so-called psychic mediums as part of their phony mumbo-jumbo. It's supposed to be a ghostly emanation. In Mr. Willis's case, what he saw floating around the half-darkened room was a thin piece of white gauze suspended from a string. In his excited state, it looked like a ghostly emanation.
Oh, well, I think that clears it up. Thanks.
You're quite welcome, Richard. Now, if there are no further questions, we'll proceed to our story.
It's a new one tonight, isn't it, Batman?
Yes, Marilyn, a brand new one.
A ghost story?
Well, I suppose you'd call it that, Roger. It's about the monster of Dumfries Hall.
All
right, now, turn the lights low, Robin. That's better. Now, the story begins 3 years ago when Robin and I were in England. We'd been invited to dinner at Dumfries Hall, an old English country manor, the home of my friend, Sir Alfred Dumfries. It was a wild and lonely night, with a storm brewing, and the fact that Dumfries Hall was located in the center of a barren moor didn't help matters any. There were 5 of us at the dinner table. Sir Alfred, charming Lady Marsden, gruff old Sir Sidney Mordred, Robin, and myself. We had just finished dessert and were engaged in conversation.
More coffee, Mr. Wayne.
Thank you, no, Lady Marsden.
Well, you may pour me another cup, by Joe.
Of course, Sir Martin.
Oh, beastly weather. And beastly hole to be having it in, I must say. Had I known the weather was going to be as rotten as this, I'd have stayed in London, I declare. How are you standing it, Wayne?
Oh, it isn't the weather I mind, Sir Mordred. It's the fact that it seems to make this old baronial mansion so chill and damp. A wood-burning fireplace is decorative, but I'd prefer steam radiators myself. You were about to say something, Sir Alfred?
I was about to say that Sir Mordred, since he has far more money than I, can have those improvements put in after he buys Dumfries Hall.
Buy Dumfries Hall? Oh, I said you'd still expect me to buy this ruddy place, Alf.
You said you would if I proved it wasn't haunted.
Haunted? Gosh, is Dumfries Hall haunted, Sir Alfred?
Of course not, Robin. It's just that a silly legend has grown up about the place. A legend concerning a monster.
Now, look here, Alf, let's face facts, what? I need a country estate, and I'm willing to buy this place if you can assure me the death chamber is not haunted. And by Joe, you know there's only one way to prove that.
That's exactly how I plan to prove it.
Sir Alfred, you don't really mean
I
it.
most certainly do, Lady Marsden.
Oh, but you can't. Anyone who spent even 5 minutes in that room after midnight...
Listen to me, all of you. There's not one of you at this table who is not aware of the fact that I'm a poor man. Yes, a poor man. Oh, I have lands, estates, but they cost me money. They don't make me money. I've got to sell this place, and Sir Mordred says he'll buy it if I can prove Dumfries Hall is not haunted. Well, I intend to prove it tonight.
Whatever?
Oh, nothing to alarm yourself about, Lady Marsden. There are wild dogs on the moor. Sometimes they bay and howl.
Yes, of course. Silly of me to be so nervous.
Well, as I was saying, I shall enter the death chamber at midnight and remain there until morning. I shall prove that the legend has no foundation in fact.
If you don't mind telling me, Sir Alfred, what exactly is the legend of this death chamber? I have only the vaguest idea.
Of course I'll tell you, Bruce. There's a room in this house which has not been unlocked for over a century. No one has entered it in all that time. Why? Because the last 3 people who slept in it died under rather mysterious circumstances. They were found stiffened by death into, shall we say, unpleasant shape.
And you propose to enter that room tonight, alone?
I do.
If these people died, as you say they
I
did...
don't say they did. The legend says it. Oh, I don't deny people have died in that room, but I'm convinced they died natural death. The rest is distortion, old wives' tales that have become more distorted with each telling.
But, Sir Alfred, what of the monster?
Oh, more of the same legend, Bruce. It said that several of the people who died screamed out something about a monster. What exactly, no one ever knew. It is also said that a strange being has been seen prowling the corridors of Dumfries Hall. Well, I don't believe a word of it. I shall prove tonight that the hall is not haunted.
By Joe, Alf, you prove it, and I'll buy Dumfries at your own figure.
I'll prove it. At midnight, I'll enter the so-called death chamber. We'll unlock the door together. I'll go in, and the rest of you can wait outside. And you may be sure I'll come out alive.
Well, it's midnight, Sir Alfred.
Yes, I wish you'd stop standing there and staring at me so, Mordred, as though you were seeing me for the last time. Nothing's going to happen, I assure you. I'm merely going to explode a silly and stupid legend.
Oh, look here, Alf. I'll buy the blooming place. Now, you needn't prove it's not haunted. I'll either keep the death chamber locked or call in a firm of London chappies and have the ghosts exterminated.
That's frightfully extorting of you, Sir Mordred, but I can't let you do it.
Oh.
Now, look here, everything is ready, so don't try to stop me. Here's the death chamber before us. Here in my hand is the ancient key to it. By George, they made them large enough in those days, didn't they? Yes, and the wild dogs are supplying just the right ghostly atmosphere.
Oh, gosh, Sir Alfred, I am scared. I hate to see you going into that room alone like
But
that.
don't fret your young head about me, Robin.
Sir Alfred's quite right, Robin.
Yeah, but...
He's just trying to prove what we've been proving for a long time. That ghosts do not exist except in the imagination.
Yes, of course. Perfectly silly, the whole matter.
Oh, stop looking so glum, Mordred. This is a lark. I'll tell you what we'll do. I keep talking to you from inside the room. So long as you hear my voice, you'll know there's nothing wrong. And let's open the ruddy room. I'll just insert the key. So. Turn it. So. Turns easily enough, eh? Now then I'll just open the door. Now, if you'll just hand me that lighted candle, I'll go in.
Alfred, by Joe, are you sure?
Oh, come now, not another word, Mordred. Candle. Thanks. Well, here I go. Wish me luck.
Good luck, old boy. Oh, I don't know why, but I have a feeling I could use a stimulant.
Nonsense, Sir Mordred. Anyway, we must all of us stay here now.
Yes, and keep talking to Sir Alfred. Mr. Alfred, everything all right?
Top hole, Bruce. Rather a musty old place, to say the least. Hardly enough air in here to keep the candle burning. But quite safe. Don't worry.
Gee, sir, is he going to stay in there all night?
Oh, no, lad. If he remains in there half an hour, it'll be enough. According to the legend, death always occurred between midnight and the half hour following. I say, Alf, quite comfortable, are you?
Oh, yes, quite. I'm enjoying it, as a matter of fact. Bring on your monsters.
It really sounds as if he is enjoying himself.
Why shouldn't he? As he said, it's nothing but a lark.
Oh, that dog again. Every time it howls, my blood runs cold. By Joe, Alf, after I've bought this place, the first thing I'm going to do is clear the moor of those blasted dogs. You care to take on the job yourself? You're a good shot. I say, Alf, would you care to take on the job yourself?
He doesn't answer.
No, it can't be.
Just a moment. Sir Alfred, this is Bruce Wayne. Sir Alfred!
Not a sound.
Don't move anyone. I'm going in there.
No, Mr. Wayne, you mustn't.
Don't move, I said. Sir Alfred! Sir Alfred!
Mr. Wayne, what is it? What's happened?
Stay where you are.
Wayne, tell me what's happened.
I can't tell you.
Please let me go to him. I must go to him.
No, you mustn't go to him. No one can enter that room. All right, Robin. Turn up the lights.
What happened in the death chamber, Batman?
I'm afraid we haven't time to go into that tonight, Jerry.
But what about poor Sir Alfred? Had he been killed by a monster or a ghost?
How many times does Batman have to tell you there are no ghosts?
Now, don't lose your temper, Robin. After all, Marilyn is a new member of the club. Be patient with her. All I can tell you, Marilyn, is this. No one else could have entered that room that night but Sir Alfred. There was only one door, and there were no windows. And yet, certainly looked as if someone or something had slipped in.
But who?
Well, perhaps we'll find out at tomorrow's meeting of the Mystery Club. And now, since time is short, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Well, I move that we adjourn.
Second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Close the meeting, Robin.
By virtue of the authority vested in me, I do hereby adjourn the 103rd meeting of the Batman Mystery Club. The 104th meeting will take place tomorrow night at the same time over the same station.